What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to recap week number 4 of the 2024 college football season. So again, I'm going to give you my 5 biggest recaps here from week 4 of the college football season. And what a week 4 it was. Obviously a lot more of a really good weekend. Had a lot more top 25 matchups, top 25 versus top 25 matchups. And we saw a lot of close games, but not a ton of upsets. We did see Michigan upset USC, but not overall just a ton of upsets. Not a lot of chaos happened, but we also saw BYU upsetting Kansas State. I think that was a big upset there. We'll talk about that more in just a moment, but I'm going to give you my 5 biggest recaps here from week number 4 of the 2024 college football season. And since it's already past week 4, I think we are pretty much knowing about more of these teams and how good they are and how for real they are going into the rest of the season. It still is the first half of the year. Teams are going to get better down the stretch, but we needed like 4 games. Some of the teams that, have played already 4 games, we know about them. And then some of the teams that played like 3 games, we don't really know much about them just yet. We'll probably find out more about them once they play their week 5 games. But let's go ahead and get into my 5 biggest recaps here from week number 4 of the 2024 college football season. And I'll start from the bottom and work my way up to the top. So we'll start here with my number 5 biggest recap. Illinois and Indiana are dark horses in the Big Ten. I think that's pretty clear. Illinois and Indiana have been both very big surprises so far in the first 4 weeks of the season. They are both 4-0. Illinois coming off that win against Nebraska. We'll start with them first. That game, of course, on Friday. I did watch that game going into overtime. Illinois, was a 8-point underdog in this game, and they go out there and win by 7 points in overtime. Nebraska once again loses a close game. This goes back, of course, to Nebraska's close games that they've lost, of course, for the last few years now. They miss a, field goal to try to put them up in this game by 3. That would probably give Illinois a chance to go down the field and win the ball game, but Nebraska probably would have had a 3-point lead, and they probably would have won that game. But, of course, they missed the field goal, and that does force overtime. And, Illinois did a pretty good job of, pressuring Nebraska's quarterback and Nate Raiola. This was his first real test as a true freshman quarterback. These were obviously the first real test for both of these teams. These were 2 really good defensive teams, and then offensively, Illinois, I was really concerned about their offense, but their offense now looks a lot better. The offense is going to get better and better as the season goes along. But Illinois gets the win, 31-24 in overtime against Nebraska. And again, the Cornhuskers, they miss a field goal, and they just find a way to lose close games. So a tough loss there for Nebraska. Indiana, on the other side, they haven't had a quality win just yet. They got their first win in the Big Ten a couple weeks ago against UCLA in week number 2. They haven't really played any tough competition, in the first 4 weeks of the season. But once they play tough competition, I think we'll find out how good Indiana really is. But yeah, Indiana and Illinois have really surprised me a lot. Indiana, I kind of knew they would be underrated just a little bit. I did predict them to go to a bowl game this year and be that surprise team. And they're off to a really good start. They're 4-0. Illinois, I did not expect them to have a really good start to this season. They are 4-0, and they actually are ranked in my top 25, so I didn't really expect them to be ranked this year in my top 25. But this Illinois team that come out with a victory over Nebraska, that definitely tells me that Illinois is going to get better and better as the offensive side of the football goes along the season. And the defense already looks pretty good. Now, they gave up 24 points in this game, but that doesn't really matter. The offense gets a game-winning score in overtime, and Nebraska does lose. Again, a close game here by 1 possession. So Illinois and Indiana are dark horses in the Big Ten. That is my number 5 biggest recap. Not really a big recap here, but I thought I'd jump Illinois and Indiana in here to these 5 biggest recaps and give them some credit here so far throughout the first 4 weeks of the season. All right, number 4 biggest recap. We stay in the Big Ten. Michigan gets back on track. So a couple weeks ago, after the loss to Texas a couple weeks ago for Michigan, I did say they had some issues. They get back on track, though. The offense gets back on track. The defense still maybe has some work to do, but, the defense has been their biggest strength so far this season. But how about Michigan upsetting USC here? A pretty good USC team that's already have a win over LSU in week number 1. They go out there and absolutely just run the football all over this USC defense. I didn't really watch much of this game, but I know just based on the score, Michigan was playing so well in this game, and I know USC almost nearly came back in this game, and they actually had the lead, but Michigan's running backs were definitely the biggest story in this game. They came out there and obviously really dominating at running the football in the line of scrimmage. So yeah, Michigan gets back on track. I think they're definitely being back to being like a top contender in the Big Ten. Wouldn't really say like a dark horse probably, but either way, it could be a dark horse, it could be a top contender, because this was actually their first Big Ten game. They haven't played, a Big Ten game, and it was against a really good USC team. So I think this is a really big win here for Michigan. Again, a couple weeks ago, they lost to Texas. They lost that game pretty badly. We were doubting Michigan, but it was just 2 weeks into the season. They had some issues, obviously, on the offensive side of the football. We knew this would not be the same offensive team as it was from last year. And Michigan went with a quarterback change as well. We saw a lot of quarterback changes, of course, over the weekend after, just 3 weeks of the college football season and after 4 weeks as well. We'll talk about a lot of the quarterback changes as we go through these 5 biggest recaps. But, yeah, I was really impressed with Michigan. They get the game-winning, field goal, I believe. So, yeah, they get the win here over USC. They get the touchdown. They go for it on 4th and go, I believe, as well, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been a game-winning field goal because, like I said, I didn't really watch much of this game. I did see the score, though, and it looks like it could have been. I think it was a game-winning touchdown. They went for it on 4th and go. But, yeah, this is about Michigan. They get back on track. You look at the rest of the Big Ten. Ohio State was back in action. They beat Marshall pretty easily. And, we saw Rutgers, I believe, beat Virginia Tech. So, yeah, the Big Ten definitely is shaping up to be a really competitive conference this year. And I just talked about Illinois and Indiana. Those have been really big surprises so far throughout the 2024 season. Don't get me wrong, I think USC is still a really good team. Their defense just really didn't play that well. The defensive line really struggled to stop the run game for Michigan. And I think the strategy here for Michigan was to run the football and waste that clock down and keep USC's offense off the field for as long as possible. They should have done that against Texas a couple weeks ago, but they do it right here in Big Ten play, and they get back on track with this victory. So I think Michigan definitely deserves a lot of credit here, and I got them here at number 4 in my biggest recap. So again, Michigan gets back on track. That is my number 4 biggest recap. Moving on to my number 3 biggest recap. Clemson, Miami, and Louisville are the favorites right now in the ACC. I think that's pretty clear. Clemson, Miami, and Louisville are the 3 front-runners clearly in this conference. We'll start with Clemson. Big win against NC State at home. I mean, how about Clemson's offense in the first half? I think they had over 40 points in this game. Clemson's offense looks a lot different compared to the Georgia game that we saw. This is a different Clemson team that we're seeing compared to week number 1. Yeah, they played a really good Georgia team, and, Clemson just could not move the football against that Georgia defense. But this is a different team. I think this Clemson team is going to get better and better. This Clemson team kind of reminds me of the Oregon team that we saw a couple years ago. Remember, Oregon lost to Georgia in the beginning of the season. Then they go on to have a really good rest of the way. They didn't make it to the Pac-12 championship game, but they were getting better and better. Bo Nix was getting better, and now all of a sudden you got Clemson here that lost to Georgia in week 1. Clemson could probably go on a winning streak, and they could probably make it to the ACC championship. They do got to play Louisville in the regular season. They don't have to play Miami, though, which I think is a really big deal. But they might meet them in the ACC championship. You never know. But again, I was really impressed with Clemson's offense. Now, defensively, they struggled in the second half. NC State ended up scoring 35 points. Yeah, it was kind of a struggling second half for Clemson on the defensive side of the football. Maybe they played some second stringers. You never know. But Clemson, they get a big win here over NC State in Death Valley. A blowout win over the Wolfpack. And then Miami, of course. Against South Florida, they got off to a pretty slow start in that first half. And then in the second half, they pulled away. Cam Ward really stepped up in that second half. And Miami, of course, won 50-15. Miami will have their kind of first real test. They'll play Virginia Tech, which I think Virginia Tech is not looking really good right now. So that might be a game where Miami's favored by double digits. But that game, of course, going to be on a Friday night, so you never know about these weeknight games in the ACC. I mean, obviously, we saw it on Friday night between Stanford and Syracuse. How about Stanford pulling off the upset over Syracuse? Who saw that one coming? Stanford gets their first win in the ACC, and then you saw Florida State beat Cal for their first win in the season, but also their first win in the conference after starting 0-2. Boston College gets a big win over Michigan State. The ACC is looking like it's wide open for the middle of the pack, but in the top contender part, I think Clemson, Miami, and Louisville are the front runners and also the favorites as of right now. Louisville, they beat Georgia Tech 31-19. Really close game there. Tyler Shuck, of course, stepped up pretty well. Louisville hasn't really played like a tough game, but that Georgia Tech game was obviously their toughest competition as of right now. But at the Cardinals, they are definitely right now among one of those favorites to get to the ACC championship and also be the front runners in the ACC as well. But yeah, Clemson, Miami, and Louisville are the favorites right now in the ACC. I forgot to mention another team that was undefeated. North Carolina, they lost to James Madison 70-50. I don't think anybody saw that one coming. James Madison scoring 70 on North Carolina. That doesn't really happen a lot in college football. So yeah, with that loss for North Carolina, Clemson, Miami, and Louisville are among the favorites right now in the ACC. That is my number 3 biggest recap. My number 2 biggest recap, Tennessee is for real. So now we get into the most important recaps here throughout week number 4. Tennessee is for real. Tennessee beats Oklahoma on the road 25-15. Now, it wasn't a really good game for the offense for Tennessee, but it really wasn't about the offense. They talk about Tennessee's offense a lot more, but give Tennessee's defense credit. Tennessee's defense played pretty well in this game. They pressured Jackson Arnold in this one. Jackson Arnold turned the ball over like 3 times in this game. Yeah, Oklahoma made a lot of mistakes. So welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma. But, Oklahoma, of course, made a lot of mistakes in this game. And I think with those mistakes, Tennessee just was able to, pull away in this game. Now, Tennessee, again, did not play well on the offensive side of the football. This was definitely Tennessee's offense, first real kind of test against a really good Oklahoma defense. And again, Oklahoma gave, Tennessee's defense, Tennessee's offense some trouble in this game. And Tennessee just really could not hit the deep throws down the field. Now, they had a long touchdown, to one of those, Dante Thornton. That really kind of changed the difference there. And then also some turnovers really killed Oklahoma's chances of coming back in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, they only lost by 10 points, but, still, Tennessee is for real. After this win, I feel like Tennessee definitely becomes a real threat in the SEC, and they also could be one of those top contenders in the conference as well. Really don't want to go that far for Tennessee, but either way, this was a really good win for the Volunteers, especially in a tough, tough road environment at Oklahoma. So, yeah, Oklahoma loses their first game in the SEC. They also went with a quarterback change. They played Hawkins pretty much, in the second half, I believe. We didn't see Jackson Arnold probably in the second half of this game. So, yeah, that was kind of really weird that they would probably bench Jackson Arnold with those 3 turnovers. It was some interceptions, but also some fumbles. Now, Tennessee did turn the ball over as well in this game. Both teams really struggled on both sides of the football, but Tennessee overall was the better team at the end of the day, and Tennessee gets the win here. Now, the other SEC games, about Arkansas upsetting Auburn on the road at Jordan-Hare. Arkansas is looking like a dark horse team in the SEC. Missouri survives against Vanderbilt in double overtime, I believe. So, yeah, the SEC was kind of crazy this weekend, but Tennessee is for real. That's what I really wanted to talk about mostly here. That is my number 2 biggest recap. We now go to the most important recap here from week number 4 of the 2024 college football season. My number 1 biggest recap, Utah, as of right now, is the favorite in the Big 12. So, yeah, I think this is pretty clear as well. Utah beating Oklahoma State 22-19 on the road. Now, give Oklahoma State credit. They were trailing 22-3 in the fourth quarter. Utah made a lot of mistakes, obviously on the defensive side of the football to give Oklahoma State back in this game. Alan Bowman was benched in the third quarter, which really, to be honest, that was a big mistake by Mike Gundy in his 20 years as a head coach. I really don't understand why Alan Bowman was benched in this game. And like I said yesterday in my broadcast, I feel like Alan Bowman played in the second half. I think Oklahoma State would have won this game. But Utah definitely was the better team here at the end of the day. Utah, I was really impressed with their running game. I mean, Isaiah Wilson made some, mistakes, a couple of mistakes. Both of these teams did make a lot of mistakes throughout the weekend. I mean, a lot of these teams throughout the weekend turned the ball over in some of these big games. Tennessee turned the ball over against Oklahoma. Oklahoma turned the ball over against Tennessee. And then also also, Utah turned the ball over against Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State had some turnovers. So, yeah, there was a lot of turnovers in a lot of these games, these big games. Obviously, the big games were Utah and Oklahoma State, and then Tennessee and Oklahoma. There was a lot of turnovers in both of these games, but Utah, they get the win here, 22-19. They ran the football here in this game, and that was kind of the difference here. And Utah pretty much controlled the clock as well. This game really went by fast, it seems like, because Utah pretty much controlled the clock, and they really ran the clock out. And they also kept that Oklahoma State defense on the field for as long as possible, and kept that offense of Oklahoma State off the field for as long as possible as well. I don't think Oklahoma State is out of it just yet, but Utah, as of right now with this win, is the favorite in the Big 12. Now, BYU upset Kansas State. I was really close to putting Kansas State here in this, number one recap. I probably would have put Utah and Kansas State right now are the favorites in the Big 12. But now it's just Utah. Utah gets the big win over Oklahoma State. BYU upsets, of course, Kansas State last night. They blew them out. So, yeah, Utah is right now the favorite in the Big 12. They get a big win on the road here at Oklahoma State. But, again, Utah had to go with a backup quarterback. Cam Rising, of course, did not play. I wonder what the status is going to be here for Cam Rising going forward. Does he play next weekend, or is it going to be Isaiah Wilson for quite a while? But we'll find out. But Utah, this is the number one biggest recap here. Utah, as of right now, is the clear favorite in the Big 12. And those are my 5 biggest recaps here from week number 4 of the 2024 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about week 4, and also give me your 5 biggest recaps down in the comments below. And let me guys know what you think about my 5 biggest recaps. We'll have my top 25 video tomorrow, as we are getting close here to the second half of the college football season. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.